Coming up in this episode, I'm going to teach you a cool trick for aligning your subframe. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Bob's Garage. And what we're going to be going over today is finalizing the subframe mounting. We're gonna realign everything, get it all mounted up, and we're gonna finish up a few more details from leftover from yesterday. So we're gonna start with the shock or strut towers, and that should complete the subframe reinstall. From there, we'll see how much time we have, and stay tuned for more. Okay, first things first, the subframe alignment trick that I'm going to show you guys just involves a 1/2 inch extension. And what you're going to do is there's two points in the front end where you can shove this extension up through, and it'll align the subframe perfectly in the front. So I will show you how to do that now. Okay, here we are in the front of the car, and this is the driver's side, and I'll show you how to align that. So you basically get underneath here, and you can see right up in here there's a hole. So basically all you have to do is shove your 1/2 inch extension in, and by wiggling this, it'll align the entire subframe up perfectly. And if we come over to the passenger side here, we got the same thing, and this one is just behind the AC dryer. You can see it right there. And once again, all you gotta do is take your 1/2 inch extension, shove it up in there, and then you can pry it, prod it, pull it, and get that subframe lined up perfectly every time. Okay, so I mentioned in the intro where we left off. So we have the back of the engine on a jack, or I'm sorry, the transmission is jacked up. Keep it level. And the engine is still held up by our cherry picker, and basically we're just still trying to get the subframe all lined up correctly. So the subframe bolts, you can kind of see them up here. I got the rear brackets, the bolts are started on both sides, and I have all 3 bolts in place on the front driver's and front passenger side. Where I left off last night, I was having some issues getting the strut towers to essentially line up. So there's alignment pins with the top of the strut tower that goes into this top plate. And this side is I think I got this side lined up. If we come around to the driver's side, I think I got the driver's side in the plate. So I just gotta try to wiggle this all into the proper location. So we also have our headlight sensor, so we'll connect that up. And once the subframe's all set and good to go, we're gonna start off is getting the wheels back on. So we're gonna reinstall the rotor, the brakes, and then we should be able to bolt the wheels back on if we really wanted to. So stay tuned. And I just noticed today, so last night I leveled off the engine essentially, and I noticed this pile of oil everywhere. I think this is oil. So I'm thinking it looks like it was dripping out of where the oil filter was. I thought originally it was coming from the driver's side front of the turbo, but I don't believe that's the case. There's just a little bit of oil in there. So we'll get this cleaned up, and we'll keep going. And the goal for tonight is to get the entire subframe back bolted on, and get to the point where all the brakes are reinstalled. And we would like to try to get the front end back on. As you remember, we also unbolted the AC compressor, And so that will just swing around once we can remove the cherry picker from holding up the engine, and we should be good to go. So one other thing to note is we got all the wire connectors pulled up from behind the engine. We had a little bit of an issue yesterday doing that, where I dropped one of the wires and lost it behind the engine. So no big deal, just lowered it back down. And what we'll probably do is make sure to wire tie up all the cables so nothing's touching the heat shields. We don't want to start any fires, nothing like that. And yeah, so we got our work cut out for us. So I'll keep you posted. I'm not going to be filming this live as I assemble everything because it just slows me down too much. So at this point, we need to get this stuff done. That's why I haven't spent any time degreasing the engine or cleaning up the back of the turbos or any of that. This is just taking way too long. So we're going to make this happen. We still have to fabricate some test pipes and all that. So we got a lot of work still to do here. So stay tuned. And we're back. So I think I got the entire subframe bolted in. It's not torqued down yet, but I just wanted to point out a couple things. So I was having a lot of problems kind of getting this lined up and all that good stuff. It's not too bad. You just got to kind of keep working at it. You can see I marred up the corner there with a pry bar, just trying to hammer it into place. It might be hard to tell, but that top plate is at a bit of an angle. So this front end is pretty much higher than the back two corners. So once I kind of got it lined up, the biggest key is to get this top plate lined up with this this bolt that's coming through. So once you do that, everything should be relatively lined up, and then you just come up top here to these three bolts. 1, 2, 3. Now I hand tightened all three of them just to kind of get them started. Don't forget about the fender washers. And this frontmost one, this is the one that you have to tighten essentially first. And once you do that, it pulls this top plate up into the top of the fender, and then it kind of essentially sets the correct angle for the back two bolts. So once you get this one tightened, it should pop the other two in place. The only other tip and trick that I got is if you're having problems getting these bolts to go in, don't force them. It's most likely you have the wrong angle for the that top plate below. So you just need to kind of take it slow, take your time. So now I just have these two nuts to put in, and on both sides, and then I'm gonna torque everything down. So I'm pretty excited. I still got to get the tie rods in and all that, but not bad for my first time dropping the subframe. So overall, this was pretty complicated, at least for me. I'm probably about 16-17 hours into this job. So I just got this bolted up, and then like I said, we still got to put the front end down and all that, so stay tuned. Alright, I'm just taking a break. I started picking up some of my tools and kind of organizing the garage a little bit. And where we stand is the subframe's completely bolted in now. The engine lift is no longer holding the engine up. There's, what else do we got? I just bolted in the drive shaft and all the heat shields underneath the car. And what else? Next up are the brakes. And I made a bit of an error, so I wanted to test and double check that the shifter cable was working fine after I reconnected that. Got in the car, hit the brakes to shift it into gear, and the brake pedal went to the floor. So I had yet to install the brake calipers. So I basically just pushed all the plungers out on the calipers, and I'm not happy about that. So that's going to take more time to get those back in or whatever, but not too big of a deal. I still have to connect up the tie rod ends. And so I believe the top bolt is, it's kind of hard to find, but the top bolt for the tie rod end should be 7 Newton meters, and the pinch nut, or the pinch bolt, that's 45 Newton meters. Let me know if that's wrong or if you have something else different. So what I'm going to try to get done tonight is I wanted to get the brakes on. So I'm going to get the tie rods reconnected, get the brakes on, maybe even get the sensors and all that hooked back up. So if you remember the passenger side, I had undone the clips that hold the brake pads in place. I don't know why I did that, but so the brake pads fell out. So I have to look up which brake pads go on which side of the caliper and all that good stuff. What else do we got? So we're getting there. We're getting there. So then I can start working on the front end and all that. So I just wanted to get the brake calipers on and the tie rods on tonight, and that'll probably be it for tonight. Maybe I'll bolt on the AC compressor. So as far as I can tell, we're moving along pretty good. So what am I at now? About 17, 18 hours in on this project, and it's pretty straightforward. I really do believe I could cut that time in probably half now that I know what I'm doing and how to do it. So yeah, and I'm still using hand tools. My air compressor regulator is shot, and I haven't even tried playing with that, so I'm probably going to have to just go get a new one and maybe return this old one or something. So I still got to hook up all the transmission lines, and then probably when everything is said and done, that's when I'll do the transmission flush, because I'm going to have to top off the transmission fluid anyway. So I'll pull the pan at that point, maybe change out the filter, and then flush it all with new fluid. So I already have all the stuff needed for that. So yeah, let's get these brakes on and then we can have an adult beverage. So stay tuned. Okay, so now I'm going to finally put on the brake calipers. So I went out and got new bolts. These are, I believe, 21mm bolts. And if you remember, I had to heat these up and they were a bitch to get off. So I wanted to show you the difference. Now the old bolts, I believe the torque spec was 150 Newton meters. The new bolts are only 140 Newton meters. So I kind of like that. I'm hoping I can remove them easier. So I had showed you before, but this is the difference. So the new one just has a washer on it. Same size bolts. So just take note, if you have the washer, then it's 140 Newton meters. Otherwise it's 150. So you can see this one I was already stripping off. So good times.